Hi, Acadiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. Got lost on my days here for just a second. It is Thursday, September the 4th. This is Let's Talk Tropics. Trying to update a couple of graphics here at the last minute. And really good news is I finally found a good telestrator that works and doesn't shoot lines out into the corners anymore. Sorry that I wasn't able to do that for the last couple of days. But I got a new version here, and things appear to be working fine. We'll see how things go as we go through the show. But we do have a little bit of action to talk about. You see there on the left-hand side of your screen, our tropical wave that's out in the middle part of the Atlantic now has an official designation. It's 91L. And if you've been following along during the hurricane season, when we get these disturbances, they start with 90L, they go to 99L, and then they go back and they start over again. And then we, get those upgraded to tropical depressions or tropical storms. And once it gets to be a tropical storm, that's when it actually gets a name. So at this point in time, we now have an official disturbance. It's way out in the Atlantic, and it's way down to the south. And the winds aren't very strong right now, but we're going to go through the different models for the next several days. This is going to be a very slow-moving system, by the way. So the chances of this making it all the way across the ocean into the Caribbean islands right now looks like it's going to take about 4 or 5 days just to get there. So right now, we've got partly to mostly sunny skies outside here this morning, and our temperatures are holding right there around 89 degrees, but it feels more like 98 with that heat index out there. So it is a little bit on the steamy side this time around, and our winds are currently out of the southwest at around 8 miles per hour, and the pressure at 29.90. That was the graphic that I was actually trying to update here right before we came on, so you might have seen a little change there on the pressure. Earlier today, we did have some scattered showers and a few thunderstorms out near the offshore waters. Also got a cool picture earlier today. My wife got one from a text from a friend that was down at Big Lake, got a really cool shot of a water spout. Unfortunately, Marco did not text that to me, so I don't have it here to show it to you, but believe it or not, yeah, we did have some of those thunderstorms along the coast that were able to produce a water spout. And yesterday, much of the Acadiana region ended up catching some rainfall. I picked up about an inch of rain at my house yesterday afternoon with those storms rolling through. Today, the air mass is considerably drier, so we're not expecting a whole lot of rain out there for you today. Traveling across the region, looking good. Henderson, Bro Bridge over there on the east side, Louisiana Avenue at I-10 and I-10 and I-49, all looking good. As you head out toward the west, toward Ambassador Caffrey, or northward toward Opelousas or Alexandria, you're not going to have any issues with any travel. So again, we've got a lot of interesting stuff that's going on here across the country. And one of them is, well, we've got one front that's kind of draped right here over the southern part of the Gulf and the western part of the Atlantic. Got another frontal boundary that's right about in here, and that's going to throw a little bit of dry air at us as we go into the weekend. And then there's yet another frontal boundary that's way up here, and with the upper level pattern ridging over here and then dipping down to the south like this, those fronts tend to kind of turn more toward the southeast toward us. So that's actually some good news. One little caveat in this whole forecast is Tropical Storm Lorena, which was a hurricane. Some of this moisture is going to get pulled up and may work its way ahead of this little trough here. So that might increase our rain chances a little bit more as we head into the weekend. But some really fine days ahead for next week. Quick tour of the northern Gulf Coast. Another gorgeous day there at Panama City Beach. Orange Beach looks pretty good there too. And as you move your way westward to Dauphin Island, you got just a handful of clouds out in the offshore waters. Not a bad day there. Cocodrie over at Lumcon. This is looking southward toward the Gulf waters. And again, a beautiful day there. And then out to the west over toward Galveston, a little on the breezy side and some spotty clouds out there, but a really pretty day to our west. And if you are going to do some boating out there, winds are going to be fairly light, probably out of the southwest today, about 10, maybe up to 15 knots. And our seas are going to be running about 1 to 2 feet. So again, a little review here of the Gulf waters. We've got a frontal boundary that's kind of draped here across the Gulf, and some dry air is pushing into Louisiana and much of the upper Texas Gulf Coast. Most of the dry air has come over on this side of the Gulf, while things are a little bit more humid here, a little bit farther toward the west, and that's part of the reason we got some of those showers and thunderstorms. And again, there's a lot going on in the Pacific, and as I said, some of this might affect the Acadiana region with some moisture from Tropical Storm Lorena And then we've also got Hurricane Kiko, which is out here in the middle part of the Atlantic. Working our way down to the south, Central America looking good today. Nicaragua, Honduras, all pretty much rain-free. So is the Yucatan and over toward Belize. We do have some rains that are down toward Panama. We got a little bit of a monsoonal trough that's out here, a little bit of a low that's going to kind of work westward, but that is not going to become tropical in nature. Caribbean is very quiet. We have a tropical wave that has come through the islands, and it will continue on its track off toward the west. And then some of the mess that you're looking up here is kind of part of an old frontal boundary and some upper level energy, but it is not anything tropical in nature. And this right here also appears to be something more in the upper levels, not in the lower levels of the atmosphere. As far as the rest of the tropical Atlantic, 91L, that is right there, and that is forecast to make its way off toward the west, and then there are some hints that it's going to be turning toward the north, and then after about 7 or 8 days, it's kind of uncertain on where that's going to go. And then we've got a couple of more tropical waves that are now starting to come off of the African coast that we'll keep an eye on. But if you want to look at the big picture here, the front is kind of situated there right around Florida, tropical wave over the eastern Atlantic, 91L in the central part of the Atlantic, and then we've got looks like 2 more pockets of energy that are going to come off the African coast and could eventually become tropical waves as they start to move westward across the Atlantic. So really the only game that's out there is 91L, and it has a really good chance that it's going to become a tropical depression or a tropical storm within the next couple of days. Early on, today, tomorrow, it might still be struggling a little bit, but it is going to move into a much more favorable atmosphere as it gets over toward the western part of the Atlantic. So this is probably the area where we're going to see something developing and perhaps becoming a named storm here a couple of days down the road. Real quick look, though, at the global tropics hazard outlook that takes us out into week 2 and week 3. Now, as far as the global tropics hazard outlook of what we're looking at here over the western Caribbean, western Atlantic, and southern part of the Gulf, that might be an indication of 91L, as it's really going to take a long time to make its way across the Atlantic, and then it looks like maybe, according to the global tropics hazard outlook, that things are going to be even more busy as we move along through the month of September. So let's focus on 91L. Again, this map doesn't really show you a whole lot except for the coordinates. The Cape Verde Islands are way over here, and then you've got your Windward and Leeward Islands that are still off the picture there. So it is really out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So far, 91L, we haven't got any visible satellites produced localized on that. I was hoping it was going to be ready for airtime here today, but it is not. But some of the forecast models on the intensity keep it below tropical storm status, at least for the next day and a half, maybe 2 days. But a few of those models are starting to climb it up to a named storm, maybe about 2 to 3 days from now. And a few models outside of 3 days are going with a Category 1 and a Category 2 hurricane. And I will say some of the models are showing that as well. This is the GFS ensemble specifically for 91L, and you can see that the average does take it just to the north of the islands, but there's a few there on that west side that put it a little bit close. Now remember, the ensemble models not just gives you what it thinks it's going to do, but also gives you a whole bunch of scenarios of what if, what could happen. So you do get a little bit of a spread, and when we're talking about the ensemble models, when you're looking at things out here where all the lines are pretty much on top of each other, you get a fairly confident forecast that it's going to stay within that range. It's when you get out here, and again, a lot of this has to do with the time frame being so far out. This is going out 10 days in some cases, and you get more of a spread. So obviously, as you go farther down the road, the confidence in your forecast starts to go down a little bit because it's just too far out. Now, here are the Euro ensembles, and again, this is hurricane specific. These are the models that are just kind of focusing on 91L, and the latest ones, or at least the newest ones, these are brand new, coming off toward the west, and unfortunately that does kind of put the islands in the crosshairs based on the ensemble models of the European model. Now this is not hurricane or tropical system specific. This is more of an ensemble suite showing where not only low pressure is currently, but also where these particular systems will be going. So again, there's all your different what ifs with 91L, which is right there. And as you get farther out into time, you see a huge spread there. Now, this is also the time where you're going to, let's say we had a named storm here. And this is where your named storm was right here. Your forecast cone going out several days is probably going to look a lot like that. And if you go back here, you can see that that's basically exactly what that forecast looks like for the 7-day forecast. So again, when you go back to this, you got a little bit of a spread. And one thing you really want to notice is there's not a lot here in the Gulf water. So that is good news for us here locally. Now, the American model, and again, this is also not hurricane or tropical specific. This is just kind of showing where lows will develop and then where they will start to track. So again, the GFS model is probably going to see more of a cone kind of like that. There are also a few little areas here along the East Coast, along the frontal boundary that might generate a low pressure. But again, there's really a lack of action here over the Gulf. Maybe a few more lows that are potential to develop in the next 10 days over the western part of the Caribbean. But again, they're not concentrated. They're not real concentrated like you're seeing here and like what you're seeing here. So right now, I'm not thinking that much of the Caribbean or the Gulf are going to be affected. But things can change. Again, that low is way, way, way out in the Atlantic, and it's going to take several days to make its way off toward the west. So let's go ahead and interact with some of our computer models here, and we'll just go ahead and put it into motion slowly. This is the Euro. And if you watch the little low that is out here in the middle part of the Atlantic, right about there, so that's where you want to kind of focus on. So as we go through, we're now getting into the weekend, and now we're into the early part of next week. And you see the Euro model from earlier this morning is taking this considerably farther to the south compared to what we were looking at yesterday. But then you start to see more of a turn. But unfortunately, by the time we reach Friday of next week, again, this is over a week away before it could even reach the Virgin Islands. According to the Euro model, this looks kind of interesting on what could possibly be developing. And again, that puts the islands there in the crosshairs. Let's go ahead and fast forward it just a little bit farther here and see what we got after that. And again, at this point here, we're beyond the 10-day forecast. So everything here is just kind of dreamland. But a lot of these will be shared probably on social media. And the reason is because it comes so close to the Bahamas and also comes really close to the southern tip of Florida. But again, you really need to write this off beyond about here. Because after 240 hours-ish, 10 days, which is right about there, everything that comes after that is kind of dreamland again. So again, this area here where that model is taking it, you really can't bite on that forecast just yet. It's just way, way, way too far out. So let's go ahead and get back here and let's look at the American model. And once again, you're going to focus your attention out here where that low pressure area is. And as we fast forward it, the GFS model has some very, very slow development, but then it starts to gain a little traction. And it looks like this 6Z, or no, this is the 12Z, so this is brand new. So the GFS is also running a little bit farther toward the south compared to what we were looking at yesterday. And again, that is going to take this particular system closer to the Leeward and Windward Islands. And that was kind of part of the headline is a lot of these ensemble models are kind of shifting this a little bit, and it's just way too close for comfort for parts of the northern Caribbean. And then as you go farther down the road, let me get rid of the circle there, we're going to go farther down the road, and we're just going to take this out to 10 days. So the Euro and the GFS are almost identical, bringing the low somewhere through the northern islands and then kind of starting to make more of a turn toward the north. So let's go into La La Land beyond 10 days, and let's just see where the GFS is going. And again, I can bet you this is going to be stuff that you're going to see on social media later today. But do remember, that is way, way, way far out. But it's always that reminder that you need to keep your guard up. Even though a lot of the tropical systems have not been affecting the U.S. or even the Gulf or the Caribbean, this is not the time to let your guard down. So we'll watch these models. They're going to change, but outside of that 10-day forecast window, it does threaten the Bahamas and even the southeastern coast of the United States. Let's go over to the Canadian model real quick. And as it drifts off toward the west, you see it starts to gain a little traction here. And we're into Sunday. This is Monday of next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then by Thursday. But you see the Canadian model, one, is not nearly as strong, and two, it starts to make that round around that ridge of high pressure. This big ridge of high pressure is going to be staying out here for a while, but the Canadian model is tending to turn it more in that direction. Now, what happens after 10 days? Well, we don't know yet because the Canadian only goes out to 240 hours. There's an even shorter range model here, which is the Icon, and this one only goes out 7 days, but if we just kind of fast forward this again, you see that ridge of high pressure over the Atlantic, which would give it a slow westward movement over the next several days. But even the Icon model by 7 days just has it kind of approaching the northern Leeward Islands. So it doesn't give us a lot of information outside of the fact that we think that this is going to go ahead and drift a little bit farther toward the west compared to the northwest like we saw in some of the computer models yesterday. So again, check back and make sure you're staying up to date on the latest models. And when you are on social media, just make sure you check the date of the post, and even better, check the date of the actual model that they're showing, because I've seen some crazy stuff where it shows the worst case scenario, but unfortunately, when it comes down on my feed, it might be a post from 3 or 4 days ago. So you really got to pay attention if you're going to use social media to get some of your weather information to know that it's the latest version and that it's from a reputable source. Water temperatures are quite warm. They're going to stay that way for the rest of the hurricane season. Water temperature anomalies starting to warm up once again here where Hurricane Aaron made a run a couple of weeks ago. Those waters are starting to warm back up. So as tropical systems want to try to work in this general direction, they're going to encounter some very, very warm waters. And not just that, but that warm water goes pretty deep below the surface. So you can see there that that the water temperatures and that heat content is very, very high. So this is the area that I'm hoping that all tropical systems or developing tropical waves avoid, because that right there, that particular region could be quite dangerous if something were to move over that, especially if it has the right atmospheric conditions, because below from the water, the fuel is definitely there, and it's almost like jet fuel for it to work with. So that is the area that we really want to hope that all tropical systems stay out of that circle for the rest of the year. We've been very lucky with everything kind of developing and then kind of turning like this, and let's hope that's going to stay the case here for the rest of the hurricane season. A couple of inhibiting factors, though. You got a lot of Saharan dust out there right now. 91L is right there, so it's kind of in between two areas of dust. Outside of that, though, that's why we think things are going to get a little bit more conducive for development as it drifts off toward the west-northwest like that, because not only will it be avoiding the Saharan dust, but it will also be moving into a moister atmosphere where it'll have a little better chance to get stronger. And as far as the wind shear, there's not a whole lot out here inhibiting it right now, and in its path, you can see right there, that blue shade, that's pretty low wind shear. If that window is open, the next couple of days could be really interesting for this particular low. Will it become a tropical depression? Will it become a tropical storm? Well, based on the warm water temperatures and the lack of Saharan dust and the lack of the wind shear in this particular area, I would say by tonight or tomorrow, we're going to start to see a little bit more organization. We might have a tropical depression on our hands as early as tomorrow, but more likely sometime on Saturday. And you really got to watch just about everything that's out there, because during the month of September, pretty much everything is open for business. This is a map of all of the named storms for the past 100 years. And you can see that they've passed almost at any location across the Atlantic, most of the Caribbean, and most of the Gulf as well. You can see there between 30 and 49 or 69 systems have passed across the northern part of the Gulf waters there in the past 100 years. So that's almost one every year, and that's why I say don't let your guard down, especially here during the month of September. Well, I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. If you do, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also turn on those notifications. Remember, you can hear my forecast daily on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1, and also on weekend mornings and usually on Mondays and Tuesdays. I don't really have that set of a schedule, but I'm helping them out over at WBRZ. So if you want to see some weather forecasting on TV again, you can always visit us at Channel 2. If you don't catch it on your television, you can always go to WBRZ.com and you can stream it live. Also, remember to follow my social media pages both on Facebook and X for any updates in case 91L goes up to a tropical depression. It's kind of in between shows. You can get an update that way. And of course, thanks to everyone who's already subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and I will see you early tomorrow morning on a Friday to kick off the weekend. Have a great day.